Media Matters did some research into how much network and cable news covers the issue of money and politics. So let's take a look at some of their findings here. So this first one is network news. That's the chart here. And this is for a time span of over 6 months. And you can see PBS leads the way with 5 different segments covering it. You have CBS with 4 segments, NBC with 2, and ABC with 0. 0. All right, now, let's think about this here. The one leading the way has 5 segments in over 6 months. That's leading the way. All right, that's totally inexcusable. Let me give you some more information on this. This one is just mentions. So the other one was segments specifically focusing on the issue. This is just mentions, so it includes offhanded mentions and stuff. So in network news, there were 27 mentions on PBS, 35 on CBS, 16 on NBC, and 16 on ABC. Let's go to the next one here. This is cable news segments. 38 on MSNBC, which actually isn't bad. I give them credit more so than anybody else here by far. Fox News only had 7 segments. CNN had 9 segments. I mean, think about it. These are 24-hour news networks, and in a time span over 6 months during an election, the most coverage was 38. Now, again, credit to that because that's way more than everybody else, but every other one is just abysmal. 7 segments and 9 segments, 7 for Fox, 9 for CNN. And then when you go to mentions, it's really not all that much better. MSNBC 224, Fox News 136, CNN 69 mentions. Now, you ready for the bomb that we're going to drop here on this entire conversation? This isn't even a guarantee that all of the mentions and all of the segments were negative in nature. In fact, many of them were likely out and out positive. Like, I'm sure some of the ones on Fox News were positive. I'm sure some of the offhanded mentions of money and politics that happened on network news were just talking about it in a factual way where you say Hillary Clinton raised X amount of money this political season in the run, whatever. But that would count. That would count towards, the check mark. Oh, you spoke about money and politics. You weren't saying it's bad. You weren't saying it's negative. You weren't saying we need an amendment or we need to change it. We need campaign finance reform. You just said money and politics. And they say the number one thing discussed when people talk about money and politics is just the super PACs. Now, the super PACs is a big thing, don't get me wrong. When you look at Citizens United, you look at McCutcheon, you look at all the cases, Supreme Court cases that chipped away and basically said money equals free speech at this point. The super PACs, they've said, in essence, it's unlimited for super PACs. Now, when you directly give to a candidate or give to the campaign or give to the political parties, well, there we have some harder caps because, that's corruption. When you give to a super PAC, which is independent expenditure, no corruption there, so spend all you want. So they talk about the super PACs, and oftentimes in the conversations about the super PACs, they'll just say that's the problem, is we gotta re-regulate these super PACs here. So they're only going 5% as far as they need to go in the conversation of money and politics. If you're focused only on the super PACs as if that's the main problem, guys, it wasn't that long ago that the super PACs had some stricter regulations, but we were still wildly corrupt. Because any form of private money in politics is going to end with people finding workarounds and loopholes where the rich own the politicians. So if that's what your focus is when you're talking about money in politics, you miss the mark. Because the real conversation is about how all private money in the political system, by definition, violates the idea of one man, one vote. Because naturally, Sheldon Adelson or the Koch brothers or George Soros or anybody else who's a billionaire, they have more of a say in this non-democracy than a grandmother does in Wyoming, simply because they have fatter wallets and they give money to the politicians and they can control them and get a phone call with them and get their priorities straight. So the only people who I'm going to give some credit to here is MSNBC, because MSNBC, I'm sure the majority of those segments were actually somewhat negative in nature, where they say this is a problem, we got to address it, because they have good hosts, Maddow, Hayes, and some others, so they're not so good hosts. But so credit to them on this, but everybody else, abysmal failure. We're talking about a time frame of over 6 months. And you have some places, ABC, 0 segments on money and politics. the biggest issue in American politics because it affects all other issues, where the American people don't get what they want because money controls the politicians. And you covered it 0 fucking times? Okay, we cover it at least 5 times a week. No, this is insanity, man. And remember, the different news corporations are beneficiaries of money in politics. Because a lot of the money, not all the money, but a lot of the money, when it goes from lobbyists and corporations and billionaires to political candidates, where does that money then end up? It ends up buying political ads that run on the big networks, and those cost a lot of fucking money. So if you're part of the big networks, are you going to want to screw that up? Are you going to want to say, we should make less money during election cycles and stuff? That's why I'd take a pay cut. No, they love that system. In fact, they're only hired and put into the high positions that they're in because they're not going to rock the boat. It's not to say they're bad people, it's just they were selected because they're people like Wolf Blitzer who've never had a strong opinion in their entire life. So this is the place that we're at right now, and I should be thanking them because naturally their utter failure has led to the success of various new media outlets.